This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate to have two outstanding guests on our show. We've got the Commissioner of Corrections, Department of Corrections, John Hamm, and Vice Chancellor of the Alabama Community College, David Walters, who wears so many hats over there they can't even decide. We're going to talk about prison education today because John and David have had an innovative move to put prison education going in the state. But I want to talk specifically. We've had David on the show before. I'm going to start with Commissioner Hamm because he's from my neck of the woods. He's born and raised over in Barber County, around Clayton, and he was sheriff of Barber County. So he's been around corrections all of his life, and he knows what he's doing over there, Department of Corrections. When he was a little boy, grew up in Barber County owned the state politics. He knew George Wallace, and he knows stories about Wallace. And tell us about growing up over in Barber and your parents knowing George Wallace. And I've got a book, Goats and Governors. I talk about how he could remember names, but go into that. But I love the way he first saw you when you came home to your parents' house. Was it in Clayton?
It was in Eufaula, but we were in Tuscumbia at the time.
Way up in Tuscumbia.
Way up in Tuscumbia, but as I said, my mother grew up in Clayton. Her family certainly knew Wallace for a long time. My daddy grew up in Eufaula. But we were up in Tuscumbia.
So both your mom and daddy were from Barber County?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we were up in Tuscumbia, and they were having a ribbon cutting for a little strip mall grocery store up there. And back then, you know, they'd bring in the flatbed trailer and play a little music. Sam Smith and the Alabamians would play some music, and Governor would get up there and do a ribbon cut and say a few words. Well, this time, Mom and Daddy were holding me. I was a couple of years old, and George got up there to speak and says, "Hey, Hiram and Francis, I see you got little John with you." And they've told me that story over my life, and I'm like, how did he know my name and never met me? He said he read it in the Clayton Record.
You know, you mentioned the Clayton Record. Miss Bertie Parrish
Yes,
had
sir.
that paper for you and Rebecca, and Billy Beasley's. That's Billy Beasley's wife. That's in the Senate from Barber County. His wife, his mother-in-law, ran that Clayton Record. But Wallace was running for president one time, and all these sophisticated NBC liberal elite were trying to catch him and everything. And they said, "Well, Governor, what newspaper do you read? Do you read the New York Times like we do, or you read the Washington Post, or what do you read?" Wallace said, "Well, I don't read either one. The only paper I read is the Clayton Record. That's the only paper I read." And then later on that show, John, they asked him. He says, because he was really, they were trying to trap him. He really was just wiping them out. And they said, "Governor, I guess you think you're the smartest person in the country, don't you? You like you got to answer everything." They're being very sarcastic to him. And Wallace said, "Well, I don't know that I'm the smartest person in the country. I'm certainly not the smartest person in Alabama, but I'm probably the smartest one on this television show." Did you know what I was watching a clip of 1968 and had Wallace on there. He was telling all the hippies were burning down buildings, and the Chicago thing was going on. The Chicago, y'all probably too young to remember the 68 when Boss Daly had it in Chicago. And they were talking about it might happen again this year with the Palestine-Israel issue. But Wallace was running for president. He carried 5 states that year. He carried the 5 Deep South states as an independent candidate. But he was sitting there, and they were talking about all the hippies were throwing rocks at him and everything. He said, "Well, you know what? I know you hippies like to run around with your hair long and sit down in front of cars and everything. These liberal elites don't mind that, but I tell you what, you let it in front of my car, it'll be the last one you run in front of." Told him that. I didn't mean to get off on that. But John, you and David have really got this thing going with the prison. I didn't even know that. I've known David for years, and he's wears so many hats over at the community college system. I was talking to him one day, and we were talking about different schools, and he said, he runs the prison education thing. He's in charge of that too. David, tell us a little bit about how it got started and everything. You and John working together.
Well, certainly, Steve. I'm excited about this partnership. We have a program that we're calling the Activate program, and it's a program to really get people in the pipeline to become a correctional officer. And the Department of Corrections does a wonderful job of the Correctional Academy. but we wanted to have something on the front end of the Correctional Academy, a really something that would get them really prepared physically and also academically to go into the academy. So we've created this program that certainly we're proud of, and I think John's proud of it as well, but the Activate program, and we're going to be rolling it out in 2 schools. It's starting Monday, Steve, so Monday is the first start date. These individuals, we've got about 30 of them. We're going to have about 15 at one college and 15 at another. It's specifically designed around 6 weeks, 40 hours a week, so they treat it like a job because John's hired them already. That's the beauty of it. They're already hired. They're on the payroll.
Now, these are new
new
guards.
employees, new hires, security officers. And then we train them and get them on the pipeline to become a correctional
Now, how
officer.
many going to be in this program again with?
We've got
60?
30. 30 altogether.
15 Ingram, is it Ingram?
No, we're doing Jeff State,
Jeff
and then
State.
we're doing Reed State down
Okay.
Evergreen.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, this is a whole new program then.
It is. We're just
I mean,
starting.
y'all been prison education though for you going back
Now,
years.
prison education is a little different. What we do with
Okay.
Ingram and training the inmates.
Let's
this
go
is
into that
actually
first, if you would.
training the employees.
John, tell us about that.
Well, I'm going to just throw in here, talking about David wearing all the hats over there for Chancellor Baker. Ingram State Technical College has done the inmate education for many, many, many years.
Going back how far you reckon, John? Ballpark. How many? 20 years?
No,
I know my
60s.
Yeah, I know
I think it
my
was the 60s.
1960.
involvement's probably been 30 plus years, so I know it was before that, but they do an excellent job of training the inmates to have a marketable skill when they get out. It's in-demand trade jobs because it's hard to find tradesmen now. So they do a great job on that.
And that's through Ingram at Wetumpka.
It is
Well,
Ingram State.
And but they do it all over the state for
They
us.
do it statewide now.
So, David and I,
Every prison. At
Every state correctional
Yes,
facility.
so got that going a little bit, and David and I talk pretty regular, and instead of focusing on the inmates, our conversation turned toward correctional officers because there's no secret we need correctional officers for our system. So David, he took off one hat and put on another one real quick and came up with an idea, and it is fixing to take place Monday, where they help us get these individuals ready for the academy physically and academically so they can pass the Alabama Peace Officer Standard Training Commission Academy so they can be certified correctional officers. And they will make a pretty good wage starting off when they can do that.
Well, now that's what I was getting around to. One of the problems we saw with the overcrowding thing was our correction officers were not making enough money to attract somebody for that hazardous job. So that's already been raised a little bit. Steve Klaus told me they raised that when he was chairman of Ways and Means. So did he a little bit?
They, yes, sir. They raised it back maybe 18, 19 somewhere, and then when I came in March of
About 18,000.
2018,
Okay,
it
I'm
was
sorry.
they moved up to probably high 30s as far as salary wise, but in March of 23. Myself, some of our staff met with state personnel, some legislators, and we raised it to just a little over 50,000 now. So if you went to work in a maximum security facility, you're going to start off day one making about 57,000.
Well, how does that compare to other states?
We are the highest now.
That's
around
what I was wondering.
Yes, sir.
But you know what? In all this lawsuit stuff and everything, I want to think that may be one of the biggest remedies is getting more officers in there. Don't you think that's probably one of the?
That is probably the biggest
That's
remedy.
what
Yes,
as a
it
layman,
is.
that's
right.
when I saw that, I said that's the answer right there to me. Just not knowing anything about corrections, but just as a former legislator and layman, I thought, well, the bottom line is if you got enough officers, because the chicanery is going on when nobody can watch them, and all that. I mean, it's like they can't cut up and do dope and kill each other, while somebody's watching them,
Well, that is the number one issue, and it is a tough job. So, with the state unemployment rate as low as it is, we still struggle trying to get qualified candidates to come to work.
Most of these 30 that are coming on,
are they real young, right out of high school or something? Are they had some other law enforcement training? A lot of some of them.
Well, most of them are probably in their 20s right now, but we are seeing some older ones very interested in becoming a correctional officer as well.
Have they been like a deputy sheriff somewhere or something?
Could have. I'll let John speak to that a little more.
Most of them for this program, no, because if they have prior law enforcement experience, depending on how much, then we have another route to get them on.
Okay.
Sooner.
That's right.
But for this program, it's pretty much people that have no experience. Hopefully there are some coming out of high school, but most of our applicants are in their early 20s.
This is a unique program. Who thought of the idea of this Activate?
David Walters.
You came up, has any other state been doing this, or how did you think about doing
Not
that?
exactly. Not exactly the way we've got it created, but certainly we've got a lot of academics worked into it. But the physical training is something that is new for us, but we're working that in as well because John was telling me, David, we've got individuals that just can't pass the physical exam.
So what are you doing physically for them?
Well, we're doing calisthenics, lack of a better word. We're running them every morning. We're going to do push-ups and do weightlifting using our fitness centers at the colleges
is there
to prepare them.
a person already on the payroll at the community college at Reed and Jeff State that teaches physical education?
Well,
or something like
for this particular program, we've hired some specialized individuals that have done that for police officer training and so forth before. So we've got very specialized individuals for this.
How did you advertise to get folks interested in this, to those 30 spots?
Well, certainly,
Could you have done more spots for others? No question, too.
Well, we're going to grow and expand, but certainly the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure they're hired, okay? Because we're going to be having them 40 hours a week for 6 weeks. An individual just can't go through that length of period without having some income coming in, especially if they're feeding a family.
So they're not on the corrections payroll.
They're going to be on the payroll immediately. So we're actually sending them to fill out a job application first. So they'll go through that.
Have they already been hired by John?
Already hired by John. Yep.
Yes, and that's nothing out of the norm because if we're getting ready for an academy class, we hire them as soon as possible because that's one of the dings on government employment. It takes so long to hire. So we have shrunk that hiring period down to just weeks, and we get them on the payroll. They go to the facility they're going to be reporting at, get some training, then they go off to the academy. So it's not much difference than us getting them on the payroll and them attending the Activate program for 6 weeks and then going right into our academy.
So the 30 people you selected, that the commissioner selected and hired, why did y'all pick Reed State and Jeff State? Jeff State, I understand, because the population base is there.
Yeah.
But why Reed down there in Evergreen? I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean,
well, we felt like that was an area that certainly would have some individuals that would benefit from job opportunities like this. So we wanted to have one in a rural area and see how that works as well.
So the most urban and the most rural.
That's right.
Basically what
that's
you
right,
did.
Steve.
And that's what you picked, those locations. Now, they're hired, the 30 been hired, you decide which 15 go where because of where they're from.
It's based on where they live.
Do they live at their own home or they live on the campus when they live at their own home?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then what we're looking at in the future, and John, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but we're looking at doing it at the correctional facilities. So
Rather
they don't
than
have to try where they're working at, and we'll actually go in and do the class there.
Do you know where those guys are going to go, where you need them after they go through the program?
These two, if the ones that successfully complete the program and go into the academy, then they will go. We have Donaldson Correctional Facility up there in Jefferson County. They could go there. They could possibly go to Bibb. The ones at Reed could possibly go to Holman or Fountain.
That's right.
John, I'm probably like the majority of people in the state. I might know more than some of it because I've been around politics so long. But if you will, take time, if you don't mind, and tell the people, our viewers, where the prisons in the state are, and approximately how many inmates they have, and if they have a certain specialty, beginning with the northern part of the state. Let's go south.
Okay.
The Limestone's got one.
Limestone has our largest facility.
It's the largest in the state is in Limestone.
Limestone, we house about 2,300 inmates there.
Are there certain crimes that go to certain places? Like Kilby used to be where all the murderers went at one time or something.
Well,
you know?
we do have levels of security from a level 1, which is a work release, where those individuals actually go out in the community and work at free world jobs, to a level 5, which we do have level 5 inmates at Limestone.
Level
So-
5 is the
Yes,
least dangerous.
No, most
Most
dangerous.
dangerous.
No,
One is the
by
least, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you got some 5s in Limestone. Out
Yes,
of
sir.
2,300.
And then coming
You
down.
keep them out in different areas of the prison, though. I mean, I don't. The 5s
Oh yeah,
go with
yes,
the
sir.
ones.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I mean,
sir.
the 5s can corrupt the ones, is what I would think. You know.
Yeah, and that's what
They're
kind
segregated.
it's a little complicated, but yes, we'll have a prison like Limestone, and we'll have level 2 inmates all the way up to level 5 inmates, but we don't have them together. We segregate them. They're, check their enemies list. What type of programming do they need? Is any of the programming court ordered? So we have to go through that with every inmate. So it's not just put somebody in a place and leave them. But going to our major institution, going from Limestone, coming down south a little bit, we have St. Clair.
Got one in St. Clair.
Yes, sir.
It was not in Pell City. It was out in the country.
Springville.
Springville, huh?
Had that one in Springville, and it's got some of the higher classifications.
Oh, it's got some bad ones in there.
Yes, sir. But we also have a medical unit there where we treat dialysis. We have probably 50, 60, 70 inmates on dialysis there at St. Clair. Then a little west of St. Clair is Donaldson. Used to
In
be
Jefferson.
called, yes, sir. It used to be called West Jefferson, and it was renamed to Donaldson after an officer got killed there. So.
How many inmates in Donaldson?
We have about 1,300 inmates in Donaldson. Probably the same in St. Clair as well. Most of our facilities, other than Limestone, is going to have that 12, 13, 1,400 inmates.
Remind me to tell you a Wallace story about the Barber County prisons when
Okay.
you go down the list. Where we covered Limestone, St. Clair, Jefferson, Donaldson, and what's next over there? You ain't got one in West Alabama, have you?
Yes, Bibb.
Bibb.
Well, over in-
Bibb's got one.
Yes, sir, right outside Tuscaloosa.
How
And
many they
Brent, probably about 1,400.
All integrated 5 to 2, something there too.
Probably no 5s there.
And Brent,
Probably got 2 to level 4s there. Then coming on down in Elmore County, Elmore County is kind of like Barber County. In Elmore County, we have Tutwiler, we have Staten, and we have Elmore.
There's a lot of prisons in Elmore.
We got.
That's why they've always been interested in it.
Yes, sir.
That's why like Sam and them, they care about that prison. Those
And-
prisons,
Well, because some of these places, especially as you know,
Big
in
as they
Barber
are.
County, it's economic thing
It
as
is.
well.
How many employees in you reckon in your whole corrections department?
We have a little over 3,000.
Woo!
So
And then how many in Elmore with all those prisons in Elmore? Would be about 500 or 600 employees in that county.
probably so. And see, also in Elmore County, as you talked to Senator Chambliss, they are very interested in the county commission. Bart Mercer and them. We're building one of the new facilities there that's going to house just that one place.
The big new one's going to be in Elmore too.
Yes, sir.
The
It's
biggest new one, all the money's been going to, is going to be in Elmore. That's where it's
4,000 inmates.
going to be 4,000. Now, when will it be opened?
May of 26,
Right around the corner.
less than 2 years.
Now to go back, let's go south. Did they close those Barber County prisons?
No, sir.
They
We
still
in Barber County.
You
have,
saved them, I bet you didn't.
I'll take credit for it, but I didn't do it. You have Easterling and Ventress and Barber, and then right outside, there in Union Springs, we have Bullock.
Bullet, yeah.
Yes, sir. And then going down to Holman and.
Holman used to be where a lot of bad ones were.
Well, see,
I shouldn't use that word, but let's say call them 5s.
well,
wasn't there a lot of-
Holman is our death row. That's,
that's
where
right,
our
yeah.
death row is.
But
And
how many prisoners down there?
Well, part of Holman was had to be closed probably 4 or 5 years ago because of some structural stuff. But we have about 380 390 inmates there. 165 of them are death row.
You know, when I first got to the legislature in '82, I had a seatmate from Escambia County named Frank Skippy White. Did you remember Skippy?
I do.
He loved the prisons, and I'd sit there and I'd watch him. Pete Turner from Auburn sat to my right. Mr. Pete loved Auburn. All he cared about was getting money for Auburn.
He loved adult education too,
He did,
Steve.
he
If you
sure
remember,
did.
he was a big
He was
supporter
big
of adult
education.
education.
And he loved education, and it didn't matter what bill it was. How does it affect my Auburn University? And Skippy, all he cared about was the prison. And finally, I said, Skippy, why do you like prisoners so much? I mean, what is that all about? Well, then he told me, he says, don't
He's
you know
got two
Holt was
of
in my district? And the other one
Fountain.
was Fountain. It was the biggest employer. Back to his point.
Yeah.
To his point, the prison and some of these things, they've been political jewels. They've been political plums. I mean, that was during the Wallace administration where prisons were put. Every legislator wanted prison because there's a lot of jobs there.
It was good
Like Elmore.
stable jobs. It's not going anywhere.
You take those prisons out of Elmore County. I don't care how big Elmore and Tog are growing. That's still a lot of employment
that's right.
in that area.
And Steve, that's why we're doing this program. We want to make sure that we're providing good, skilled labor because these are really sustainable wage jobs. These are jobs that you can really raise a family on. So
now, will they start making this? They don't make it that 57 to begin with, do they? Will they start off at that 57?
When they are correctional officer trainees in the academy, they will make 57. Well, they won't make 57 because we have it tiered. You'll start off at around 52, but then if you go to a medium facility, you get a 5% increase. You go to a maximum facility, you get a 10% increase. So the 10% is up to 57,000. Then we do have ample opportunities for overtime. So
Do you know that those prisons in Barber and Bullock are some of Pike County's biggest financial boons? There's a financial boon to Pike. Those people from Barber, that part of Barber and Bullock, come to Troy to trade. They go to the grocery store, they go to the doctor. I've had merchants and physicians and everything say, if we didn't have those prisons over in Bullock and Barber County, it'd make a difference in our economy.
Well, Easterling.
Easterling.
Easterling's right down there,
Wow.
just 20 miles from Troy, and it's not very far from Ozark. So
Yeah.
a lot of our employees are from that area.
They live
as
in that
well.
area. I had a lot of friends, my political friends that worked at the prison.
Yeah.
It happened during my first term in the House when I had part of Barber and Wallace was governor. And they were going to build those prisons over there, Barber and Bullock County. And Wallace was circuit judge for Barber and Bullock when he was a young left legislator. And the story is they did an exhaustive study where they were going to put those prisons. And it was like they paid some some group out of New York to say, where should we put the prisons? Well, they came back with this highfalutin, expensive report, said we ought to put them near Jefferson, Mobile, and Madison because that's where most of the inmates come from, and they can be close to their families, and they can visit them and everything, which made sense. And Wallace looked at that thing. He said, "Well, that's a good report. That makes a lot of sense. But you know what? I think we're probably going to put those prisons in Barber County, if you don't mind." And that's where they went there. But the report, John, said they should go near Jefferson, Mobile, and Huntsville. You know.
And going back to David, talking about getting good skilled workers to be correctional officers. I mean, that's because things have changed since 1986 when I first got into law enforcement. So it's the same thing in corrections. We need good skilled people, and these jobs we're trying to keep up because we're talking about the starting salary. Within 2 years, their base salary would be around $72,000. So I don't know of a lot of other jobs that kind of pay that and have the benefits of the state. So David and them, they're going to help us get these people so we can train them academically and physically. And you think, why is that important? Because we have some outside requirements we have to meet with Alabama Peace Officer Standard Training Commission. One, you have to pass the physical fitness test. Well, yeah. So that's almost, if you can't do that, then you don't get to move forward.
Else.
Then if you don't have an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, you have to take the basic aptitude test. So that's the academic part. And the third requirement for MAPOS that we have to meet is a psychological assessment, so we make sure you're okay. So David and the two-year college system will take care of, you know, two of those with the physical and the academic, so we can get these people in and, you know, really set them on a career, because right now at corrections, you come in, you know, the sky's the limit. You know, you can be promoted to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and you can be a warden. So it's good opportunity.
John, under the whole thing, when this whole prison suit came out of federal court, and at that time, I'm sure one of the things they pointed to was the lack of corrections officers. At that time, when the suit was first filed, till after this group, let's say the 30 get in there, where will your numbers on correction officers go to guard the prisoners from the time when that lawsuit hit the first time?
Well, we have three big systemic lawsuits against. One's called the Duke lawsuit, and it just pertains to St. Clair. We have the Braggs lawsuit, which is system-wide, and then of course we have the Department of Justice lawsuit that is system-wide. And you know, the Department of Justice is the newest one. It came in maybe 2021, somewhere in there. The Braggs and the Duke have been around 2015, 2016 when they were filed.
This last justice one, when you said, what I'm trying to get to, how far have you come with corrections officers since that one and today? At the end of this year, let's say.
We have made great strides in that, because we knew that was the biggest issue facing us when I came in January of 22, and we've worked on that every day. We've revamped our personnel, like I said, our hiring system, where used to you'd submit an application, it'd be months and months. Now you submit an application and, you know, it's 3 or 4 weeks before you can actually be on a payroll. So we've done just about everything we know how to do, and that's the reason partnering with the two-year college system and the Activate Pro, that's just another tool in our toolbox to get the folks in there. And we're open, you know, I've had comments, you know, you need more correctional officers. I know that. Well, tell us how we might be able to hire them, and we're all ears. So, you know,
David's listened.
David does listen. He does. He does something about it besides just listen.
Well, I appreciate both of you gentlemen. I thank y'all for what y'all do for the state as far as the initial prison education. And having those guys, when they get out, they're ready to, they got a job, they can do something.
Absolutely.
But this new program will be great too to add for correctional officers.
It will be, but let me give a shout out real quick, Steve, to President Funderburk and her staff at Ingram. They do a wonderful job statewide of making sure that inmates are prepared and ready when they get released. So it's not only helping DLC, but pardons and parole in that transitioning process. They do a wonderful job of getting them job ready, and we're really making a difference in the lives of our inmates and the citizens across the state of Alabama.
You really are.
Yeah, and I echo that. You know, Annette does a great job with Ingram and the training, but then it's all, you know, it starts from the top. Chancellor Baker, he's certainly has, you know, interest.
The vision and the foresight.
Absolutely, and makes it so easy to work with. I mean, that's a good thing in state government.
Well, Jim Baker's a great gem for the state, the treasurer, and what's happening in the community college system is a great story.
Absolutely.
Too.
It is, Steve.
This is just part of it. This is just part of it. I thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. Let's do it again toward the end of the year, or begin the first of the year if we can.
We'd love to.
And then,
we'd love to.
You know, and talk more about the basic thing and see how this has worked out for this group.
Yeah,
The first
let's do it. Sounds good.
Thank y'all for doing this with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers, for watching. We've had Commissioner John Hamm, the head of the Department of Corrections, and Dr. David Walters, who is Community College Vice Chancellor, with us tonight talking about a new program in prison education. We thank you, viewers, for watching. Hope you'll tune in next week. Thank you so much.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.